A U.S. Air Force B-52 Stratofortress has crashed in California, an event that is quickly generating two distinct narratives about the state of American military power. On one side, the crash is viewed as an alarming symptom of aging infrastructure and delayed modernization, while on the other, it is seen as a tragic, isolated incident involving a reliable strategic asset. What is currently verified is that the aircraft went down in California and that there are presumed fatalities, though the full details are still emerging. The B-52 Stratofortress is a long-range, subsonic, jet-powered strategic bomber that has been a staple of the U.S. Air Force for generations. Originally designed in the 1950s, the airframe has outlived many of its contemporaries through a series of comprehensive upgrades. Despite its age, the aircraft remains a critical component of the nuclear triad and conventional strike capabilities, expected to remain in service well into the 2050s. Initial reports regarding the specifics of the crash are coming in from various international and domestic outlets. Al Jazeera reports that the crash occurred at or near Edwards Air Force Base and happened shortly after takeoff. PBS NewsHour Politics has reported that the incident took place at around 11:20 a.m. local time. These details provide the immediate geography and timeline of the accident as understood by early witnesses and officials. Progressives argue that this crash highlights the critical issue of the U.S. military's aging infrastructure. They point to the B-52 Stratofortress, a platform in service since the 1950s, as evidence of the risks posed by delayed modernization and maintenance backlogs. Critics on the left suggest that keeping aircraft in service for this long creates inevitable fatigue and mechanical stress that upgrades cannot fully mitigate, putting air crews in unnecessary danger. Left-leaning commentators emphasize the human cost and safety protocols, questioning if budget allocations for new advanced weapon systems are prioritized over the safety and readiness of existing air crews and legacy fleets. The argument here is that the Pentagon is choosing to fund expensive future technologies while failing to adequately fund the maintenance of the current force, leading to preventable accidents like the one in California. Conservatives characterize the event as a tragic but isolated incident involving a vital strategic asset. Instead of looking at the age of the fleet as a primary culprit, they focus on the immediate response of emergency crews and the service of the airmen involved. Supporters of this view argue that the B-52 has a long history of safety and reliability despite its age, and that mechanical failures can occur in any complex machinery, regardless of when it was built. This framing tends to emphasize the resilience and capability of the military personnel rather than systemic failures. Supporters counter that the B-52 remains a cornerstone of U.S. deterrence, and that the military is doing its best to maintain these aircraft with the resources they have. They caution against using a single crash to indict the entire strategic bomber fleet or to demand immediate, expensive overhauls that might not be necessary. Looking at the media landscape, the coverage so far is notably one-sided. This story has not yet been picked up across the political spectrum, so a like-for-like coverage comparison isn't possible yet. Most reporting is currently focused on the immediate facts of the crash and the ongoing rescue efforts, rather than diving into the deeper policy debates regarding military spending or fleet modernization that typically define partisan divides. Because the event is fresh and investigations are just beginning, there is a gap in analysis regarding the long-term implications for defense policy. Neither side has fully engaged with the specific mechanical details of this crash yet, leaving a blind spot in understanding whether this was a maintenance issue, a pilot error, or a technical failure. The coverage is currently reactive rather than analytical, missing the broader context of how this fits into the Air Force's overall readiness strategy. Let's verify what we know against the reported claims. It is a verified fact that a U.S. Air Force B-52 Stratofortress crashed. It is also verified that this crash occurred in California. These are the undisputed core facts of the event. Reports regarding the specific location near Edwards Air Force Base and the time of the crash are attributed to specific news outlets and are currently accepted but subject to change as official reports emerge. There is a significant conflict regarding casualties. Verified facts state that 8 people are believed to have died or are presumed dead. However, Al Jazeera reports that it was not immediately clear if there were any casualties. This discrepancy highlights the confusion often present in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. While the presumption of death is high based on verified sources, official confirmation is pending, and we must treat the specific number as a developing situation. The B-52 fleet has undergone extensive modernization over its life. The airframes themselves are old, but the avionics, engines, and weapon systems have been repeatedly updated. This creates a complex picture where the age of the plane is a matter of debate. Is it a 1950s airframe or a modern aircraft wrapped in an old shell? This technical nuance is often lost in the broader political debate about military readiness. Military aviation carries inherent risks, even with the newest technology. The investigation into this crash will likely focus on the flight data recorder, maintenance logs, and eyewitness accounts. Determining the cause will take months, and until then, any claims about the specific cause, whether it be age-related fatigue or a specific mechanical fault, remain speculative. The Air Force will likely ground similar aircraft as a precaution while the investigation proceeds. Returning to the progressive perspective, the concern is not just about this specific crash, but about a pattern. They argue that the military is stretched thin, operating equipment well past its intended lifespan while chasing expensive next-generation programs that face their own delays and cost overruns. From this viewpoint, the crash is a symptom of a budgeting process that values capability over sustainability, and they urge a shift in priorities toward maintaining the safety of the current force. On the right, the counter-argument focuses on the necessity of the B-52's mission. They argue that the aircraft is still effective and that replacing it prematurely would be a waste of taxpayer money. The focus remains on the heroism of the crew and the effectiveness of the response teams. They view calls for immediate scrapping of the fleet as politically motivated rather than driven by actual safety data, emphasizing the military's competence in managing legacy equipment. What to watch for in the coming days is the official Air Force report on the status of the crew. The confirmation of the casualty count will resolve the current conflict between verified presumptions and earlier uncertainty. Additionally, watch for details on the specific squadron involved and their recent mission history, which may provide context on the operational tempo leading up to the crash. Any mention of a mechanical failure versus pilot error will significantly shift the narrative. To recap, a B-52 crashed in California, resulting in the presumed loss of life. Progressives see this as a sign of dangerous aging infrastructure and misplaced budget priorities. Conservatives see it as a tragic, isolated incident involving a reliable strategic asset. The coverage gap currently lies in the lack of deep policy analysis, leaving the debate focused on the immediate tragedy rather than the systemic causes. We will keep you updated as the verified facts emerge.